What's cooking, everybody? We are here. It is exactly, well, my clock actually says it's a minute early.
So does
but we're here.
Same with mine.
Doesn't matter. We're here.
We're
We're
here
live.
a bit early. This is great. This is new.
I don't know if anybody is here yet. We can kind of wait around and see if anybody's here. How are you doing, Connor?
Oh, good. How are you doing? I don't think we've asked each other that question. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing all right because we have this.
Ooh.
The infamous EOS R. Look at that. You got that nice shutter curtain down there?
It is nice.
Covers the sensor. It's one of my favorite features about this camera. And we'll get into all those amazing details coming soon.
In a moment. We
For-
be here. What's up, Mike?
What's up,
Ethan?
guys?
What's up?
So, we got 5 people here, so thanks for being here, everybody. Oh, I almost dropped my coffee all over my computer and
We are playing
cameras.
with fire here, with liquids and electronics
Yes.
just strewn about.
Audio sound good? Video look good? We're kind of becoming pros at this.
I would say intermediate.
Yeah, intermediate.
Yeah, 12 of these now.
So we are moving in literally a week and a half.
I drive out a week
A
and
week?
2 days from now.
It's amazing.
That's crazy.
We're both Tennessee boys. I basically call this home. I was
Raised,
only
not
2
born.
I was only 2 years old when we moved
Yeah.
here, so this is totally home. I think, honestly, you are more, like, you've lived here less than I have. So.
Yeah, about 14 years.
So.
Yeah. That's a good long time.
What's up, John Steingard? John Steingard
Yo.
is in the chat. He's one of my friends. He lives in the San Diego area. I think I've told you a little
You've
bit
told
about
me
him.
about him. You've told me about so many people, though, but
Yeah.
it'd be nice to meet you in person there, John.
Yeah, so we're here. We've got the EOS R. We're going to take any questions you guys have. I will say, though, let's preface, I do not know a lot about it.
We've had it for, what, a couple days?
We've only had it for like 2 days now.
Yeah.
And to be completely fair, we haven't been spending all of our time using it either.
No.
So
No.
we've been just kind of like, to be completely honest, I need to apologize to you subscribers because we have just not been very consistent with our video uploads.
Yeah.
That's something that we're wanting to change moving forward. But it's really just because we went to Germany, we're packing,
Yep.
we've got, apartments to line up. And then I'm also working with Polar Pro, and we're doing I can say that. But
We can say it now.
I can't say what exactly we're doing. But
Okay, cool.
I am working with them, and it's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So, real busy, but it doesn't matter because we're here now.
Kinetika's not going anywhere. We're a little disorganized. That's all.
And if you are in the camera reviewer space, right now is a really, really busy time.
It's crazy.
We've got
GoPro.
the EOS R, the GoPro Hero 7,
XT3 wasn't that long ago.
XT3, which we actually shot a review. We just haven't been able to finish the edit.
Yeah, it's... yeah.
We got this 2 days ago, and that basically paused our whole XT3 thing.
Yeah.
So we will be getting that out the door next week, hopefully, so that we can kind of have a calm, easy travel to California.
Yeah. Ethan wants to know if you like country and do we live near Nashville?
I do not like country music.
I'm going to be honest, very few country. Johnny Cash. I can listen to some Johnny Cash.
And I live in the city. I live in Nashville.
I live in the greater Nashville area.
Yeah. So he's about 40 minutes from downtown.
Mm-hmm.
John Steingard asks, can the EOS R make you a sandwich? No.
I bet we could make a sandwich with the EOS R, but it would be messy.
I would. I mean, you could sort of make a sandwich because it's got a flip screen, so you can kind of like close some meat in there and then eat the camera, but that'd be weird.
Justin Rivas, what's up?
What's up, Justin Rivas? I'm here now. You guys are wrong. Whatever you say about the EOS R.
Ouch.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be doing some extensive reviewing on the camera before I release my opinion on it.
Justin, I have the M50, man. We're on the same team here.
So yeah, we've got the M50 over here. Connor's an M50 owner and shooter. Yep. He ended up buying the one that we were using for the channel, and then we've got the EOS R here, and I don't know. I don't know if I want to keep it. It really hasn't been that long, but
Justin says we should name the show Dave and Jesus Talk Cameras.
yeah, there you go. We're also you should probably get the same hat that Levi Allen has because you're rocking his look right now.
No, this is my look.
If you wore my glasses, you would look like Levi.
I mean, yeah.
What's up, Steve Carpenter, Ethan H. I'll switch places with you. I live in Cali and love country. Nice. All right, so we've got 27 people here in the stream, so let's just jump into it. I did post a picture on the community forum, and I asked if you had any questions. I'll start off with a question from Tough Kid Ahmed. Do you compare M50 and EOS R? We are going to be doing a comparison for sure, because that is something that we are very, like, we know a lot about that camera.
And so. Also, like I said it before we had it, it sounded to me before we had it like it was just a beefy M50, which now that we have it, it seems like it might be. We have it for 2 days now, so I don't know, early impressions, we might be right.
Yeah, we bought it so we can keep it as long as we need, and then we'll figure out if we want to sell it or not.
Right.
There's a lot of things about it that I just can't, like, get over compared to the A7 III.
Yeah.
For at least with what we're doing here on Kinotika. But there are some things about it that I can see why somebody would want to get.
Let's take a pause real quick. If you have any questions for us directly, do at Kinotika before or after your question, just so we know it's for us.
Indeed.
Otherwise, it's a lot of words on our screen, and we don't know who's talking to who.
John Steingard, 100% agree. M50 owner. It's a great backup camera. No reason to upgrade to an EOS R. That's true. I think, Justin Rivas, EOS R is just a supercharged M50, a slightly overpriced one.
Yes.
Exactly. That's the thing. We'll get to that in a minute, but let's just start there.
Yeah, why not?
The price on this camera. So, let's see. I'm actually going to look it up.
This little bar here, we should put it on my side next time.
Oh, there it is. Right on the home page.
Of course it is.
So, body only, the EOS R is coming in at $2,299. Basically $2,300.
Right.
$2,300. And there's no lens with that. So if you want to get this kit here with the 24-105, you're looking at
survey says
$3,400.
What?
So this kit right here.
I actually didn't look at that. That's nutty.
So that, and then we also got the adapter here, which I think is essential because there's ultimately there's really no lenses. This is the only one, and then there's a couple other ones that are coming out later. You have to get the adapter, and that's an additional $200. So
we're talking what, $3,600 for a basic startup?
And here's the catch with all of this. Canon is saying that this is not the Pro version. This is literally like the 6D Mark II of their mirrorless lineup.
Sure, that makes sense.
So this camera, if you fast forward 2 years from now, hopefully there's going to be a couple more mirrorless full frame bodies from Canon using this new mount, which is great. This will live as kind of the lower end model.
Which basically means that their next model should be more like their 1DX Mark II mirrorless version, and if price is anything from the 1DX Mark II, that'd be what, $6K? Do you think?
They might bring it down to like $445 or something to compare with like an A9. So the Sony A9.
Okay. I
would imagine they'd price it around that point. So kind of that's the big kicker with this camera is like the price point is so odd because if you look in Canon's lineup, it's a unique camera. Obviously, it's the only full frame mirrorless. And with that, I guess it's worth it if you want mirrorless.
Right.
But if you look at the competition and you look at what's going on in the industry with, for example, the XT3, which is only $1,500, and it's doing so many amazing things. If you want to directly compare it to a full frame mirrorless, of course, the A7 III is the one to compare it to, which coming in at $2,000.
It's doing everything this camera is doing.
And in some cases better. The only thing that continues to be true with Canon is the color science and
the autofocus.
And the autofocus as well, which is fabulous. I was doing some tests today, just taking some pictures of my son. We had a lunch with my family. He didn't. I took a lunch with my family separate from Connor. And I took some pictures using the setup here. And I will say having an f4 lens kind of sucks. I wish I had an f2.8 at least zoom on here. But the pictures I took, it's so nice to look at Canon pictures. They always look so natural. And there's just something kind of special about it.
You would always say that it has a mojo.
Mojo.
Yeah, Canon
totally
mojo.
Has mojo. And John knows exactly what I'm talking about when I say mojo. Because he's kind of the guy that says that.
Oh yeah.
So let me. There was another question here in the chat, in the post. Can you test manual focus with vintage glass using the focus assist and also the test autofocus? See if you have similar issues from Jordan Drake from DP Review. So before the stream happened, I did a test using this focused assist mode. If you're not familiar with it, it's on the C200, and it's really great to have with the EOS R. It's not on anything else that I've ever seen other than the C200. And it's really cool. Basically, you can either select a point, and it uses the autofocus technology from dual pixel autofocus to basically confirm or deny if you're in focus, but you focus manually. And what's really amazing is the face tracking works with that. Yeah. So I'm using, on the Sony a7 III right now, I'm using a manual contact Zeiss lens from the 80s. Has a beautiful character. Great colors. I love it. It only cost me $350. It's a 50
so nice
1.4 aperture. It's a great lens, one of my favorites ever. But it's manual focus, so it's tough to focus with it. Well, with this focus assist thing, I can actually have the camera still use all that technology, so I'm not losing out on it. It tracks your face, and then it has these little lines like this. And as I can move the focus, the lines line up, and once they're like dead center, the box turns green, and it basically verifies that you're in focus on the person's face.
Which is actually super handy, especially for me, because I don't have as much experience with manual focus, being that I got into it later. So it'd be nice to have that extra bit of confidence that, yes, I am in focus.
The camera also has focus peaking, and it's really good.
Yes, the focus peaking is good.
It's the exact same as what I've seen on the M50, which is really good. Like, it reminds me of a C100.
Yeah.
Another person, Loom, asked, please test the 1080p quality. How's it compared to a C100? It is definitely nowhere near a C100. It's good. It reminds me of the M50, which, again, John and Justin in the comments are talking about the M50. The M50 is so special because of the price.
Right.
The M50 is giving you the same 1080p performance that you're getting out of this virtually for only...
Survey says...
For only... I'm going to do body only. $779. So
and you could probably find one cheaper now somewhere else.
Yeah, you could totally find one cheaper, probably used. I mean, on B&H's used site, you can get one for $646. So for $1,500 less, you can buy an M50 and get great 1080p.
Right. Throw a really nice lens on there with the adapter, so maybe an extra $200 on there. Throw a nice lens on there.
In fact, if you bought the adapter, the M50, and the Sigma 18-35, that would still be cheaper than buying an EOS R.
And you are essentially getting the same 1080p out of it. Now, if you're only shooting...
It's not full frame.
It's not full frame. And
unless you buy the speed booster, which we'll talk about.
And if you want 4K, that's kind of a weird thing. Although the speed booster's coming out soon.
So let's speak to that. So we went to Photokina.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen any of our Photokina videos, just look on our channel. All of our most recent ones are from Photokina. And believe it or not, we still have more videos to release from Photokina.
I was working on one just a second ago. So which one?
We still probably have maybe 3 more left, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
And one of them is a speed booster for the M50. And it's really curious. The speed booster on the M50 really solves a lot of problems. First off, it gives you full frame equivalent 1080p for video and obviously stills. And the autofocus is still just as good because the dual pixel autofocus works great.
Yeah.
Even with an adapter, we did some tests with a knockoff that we found on eBay, and the autofocus worked surprisingly well. Like it didn't seem to be any different than the Canon.
Yeah, it
adapter.
didn't seem to have any hindrances that I could tell.
Which in the past, when you use third-party adapters, I've found that the autofocus usually doesn't work as good. But in this case, it seems that Canon stuff translates through third-party adapters. So Viltrox is making a speed booster, so it takes your 1080p to full frame, And the 4K crop on that camera is really bad. But once you add the speed booster, it basically makes the crop in 4K on this the same as the crop in 4K on this.
Right.
So literally all you have to do is buy an M50 with a speed booster, and you basically, in air quotes, have a lot of the same things that this camera has. Now, of course, there are downsides with a speed booster.
Yes.
You know, it's not the same as having full frame. We know that. There's a chance that you could get like a light leak coming in. As long as the adapter is high quality, you won't have that. But, you know, adapters have issues too. But we're talking like thousands of dollars difference. And it's also way smaller. And you can take the speed booster off and use crop lenses.
Right.
Anyways, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I'm not seeing a huge difference in the 1080p.
How much smaller is it? Mind you, I have an adapter with a lens on there, but
It's quite heavy.
yeah.
They really didn't do much work to make this camera light. In fact, the Canon SL2, which is a DSLR, is much smaller and lighter than this camera is. So they're definitely not going into the mirrorless trend on the full frame bodies, at least, for going small. I guess Canon's solution to having a small mirrorless is to go with their current lineup of M cameras.
But I will say I kind of like the thickness
I love
of this camera.
I love it. I do think that this lens and this body is too heavy, in my opinion. It's heavier than I would like to have.
Right.
If this were my full-time tool and I felt this was good enough to be a professional setup, then that's fine.
If you threw a grip on there, it would balance a lot better.
Yeah, if you put a battery
Basically,
grip on
the
here.
lens is just really heavy.
Yeah.
More than the body
So
itself.
the EVF is really nice, well designed. The readout on it is great. The screen is great. Look at this. This right here. This one simple thing. This simple freaking thing.
Potentially has a patent on it. I mean, golly, why is no one else doing it?
This right here. If this existed on a Sony, on the Fuji, on the Nikon, on the new Panasonic S1, gosh, man, it would solve so many problems, wouldn't it? Like, it would be such a no-brainer to recommend an A7 III if it had this. It would be a no-brainer to recommend the new Nikon Z6 if it had this. It'd be a no-brainer to recommend the XT3 if it had this freaking feature. Why doesn't anybody do this? It blows me away.
There's got to be a reason. Although we did talk to, what was it, Dan? What's his last name?
Chung.
Yes, we talked to
from Atomos.
From Atomos, and he said that he does not.
He prefers the
like that.
He prefers the Sony method.
Yeah, the Sony or
then
the
you look directly down.
Right, the one with like the little flip up.
His complaint was he doesn't want to look off to the side like this. He wants to be more center. But I mean, I think if you were to take a poll, most video people would still rather have this for this.
Although I think he was specifically saying photography, so that might be a distinction there.
But I mean, for photography, you can do portrait mode like this. You can do high angle like this. You can do low angle. I mean, there's so many benefits for photographers and videographers with a flip out screen.
Yeah, Justin's saying that I'm summarizing, but basically the flip out screen is everything for creators.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that I do like is this little control ring here. It's something that Canon seems to have put on all of their new RF lenses. And by the way, this is a new mount system called RF. It might look a little bit like an EF mount, but it's not. This is a completely new redesigned mount. And the new lens standard has more electronic points as well. So like apparently the IS in the lens is better. The autofocus is better. Basically, the EF mount was designed in the 80s.
Right.
So this is new 2018 technology.
Needed an update.
Totally needed an update. Welcome edition. I even kind of like the gray, like space gray kind of color scheme here.
It looks nice. The whole color scheme of the camera. I mean, it's kind of like Apple-y.
It looks like money. Like there's been a lot of thinking when they are designing this for sure, because it's very pretty.
Yes.
The grip is nice to hold. The SD card tray is exactly like what you've seen on an 80D or a 60. It's just
which I like that. I like that it's off. I don't like.
It's off to the side.
I do not like. That is one thing. I don't like the M50s because it's in the battery. It's in the bottom.
And speaking of batteries, we do have the standard LPE6 in battery system, which is great.
Also great.
If you have the 6 in, you can charge the battery through the USB-C port, which is great. We love seeing that. That's just future-proofing it. But you can't charge it or power it when the camera's on. It only charges the battery when the camera is turned off.
Do you think that's something that they could change later, or do you think that's what they got? It's hardware.
That is it. The only way that you're going to be able to power this camera continuously in the way that we use our Sony A7 is the way that you've always done it in the past. You buy one of those little dummy batteries that go in the grip, and then there's a little AC plug that comes out right here. There's actually a little rubber connector here that you move. It's literally designed for that reason. And then you could just plug it into the wall. So that's a little bit of a bummer because I would have loved to use my MacBook Pro charger and just power this thing while we're doing a live stream or whatever. I guess you can't do that.
But I mean, at least there's a capability to do so.
Yeah, you just buy the AC thing. Right. It's going to be more expensive because it's proprietary. I do not like the layout here. Maybe it's just because it's new.
No,
but there's a lot of things that don't make sense.
I would agree because I took it home last night and played just for a little bit with it, and I agree. I think that the ISO button is a little bit out of the way for some reason. I don't like these new dials. I don't like that. We talked about this earlier. We don't like that the on-off is on the opposite side. That felt weird to us.
Here's the M50. The M50, for example, has an on-off switch right here, which is the hand that you're using to control the camera.
Right.
And in fact, I can turn it on
one-handed,
which
exactly.
is great. My Sony has it right here by the shutter. Every Canon camera I've ever used has it right here underneath the mode dial switch on the right. So why did they should have put the mode dial over there.
Right.
The on-off switch right here by your thumb next to maybe a little dial or something.
Also, we could talk about the mode button in general with switching between video and photo.
Yeah.
How that's a little awkward.
It's a little strange. So one thing that I loved about Canon and a lot of other companies have copied is the way that they used to do their photo and video switch. Yeah. It was like it had like a little record button and there was like a little switch. You could go photo or video. Yeah, and you just click it over left or right. It saves the 7DD has
it. The 7DD has that. Yeah. I'd grab it, but
you guys probably know what I'm talking about anyways.
But with this one now you have to press in the mode button and then press in info, right? Press in info, and now you're in the other mode.
It's a two-step process, and it requires you to look at your screen because you're kind of not sure what you're doing. If you don't want to look at the screen, you do have this little top LCD here.
That's true.
And so you can actually see it there, which is nice.
Yeah.
There's a little...
the LCD is nice.
It's not an LCD. What is it? It's an OLED.
Whatever.
Or whatever.
It's like a Kindle.
And it's always on, actually. So even when you turn the camera off, it tells you what mode you're in. I don't know if you can customize that. It'd be cool if you could put battery life on there even when it's turned off. That way you kind of know like what your percentage is.
That would be cool.
That would be handy. The record button's in a strange spot.
Yeah, that was another one because I kept trying to.
But I mean, I immediately just changed the settings to make it on the shutter. So just immediately put it on the shutter because you don't want to use that record button. The ISO button is like a function button. It's not a dedicated ISO button.
Yeah, there used to be like a button right here somewhere.
Like I was expecting it to be like a 5D where you have ISO, white balance, and what else? Exposure comp. And it's just like all their cameras have an order to them. But now it's a completely new redesign setup. And it's been a little weird. The touch strip here, I haven't even customized it at all.
I will say it's annoying when it's not set up because it's very sensitive. Every time you touch it, it's like, do you want to set it up?
Yeah.
And it shuts off everything else, like your EVF and everything. It's like, set it up.
The one thing that I think photographers are going to be really upset about is the fact that this camera doesn't have a joystick on it to change your focus points. Again, that's understandable if you're spending $700 or $1,500 even for like an 80D.
Right.
But if you're spending over $2,000 for a photography tool and it doesn't have a joystick focusing mechanism, that's kind of weird. Although my Hasselblad X1D doesn't have one.
And also, this is not being marketed as their Pro. So
but
that's probably
but
I bet you the next one will.
maybe. Well, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
But you can use the touchscreen. That's what they expect you to do. I set it up so that I can move my focus point touching the screen. I'm used to that with the X1D, which is a $10,000 pro camera that doesn't have a joystick on it. So we're missing out a ton of comments here. So let me go through here.
We went on a rant there for a second.
Yeah, we went on a rant. Kinotika, Aaron Alden, what about the M50 IPB compression? Dave hated it on the 62. So the IPB compression in 1080p on this one is a little bit better, and I think it has to do with the Digic 8 processor, or processor, as Justin Rivas would say. Justin, can you comment and respond to Aaron? Is that why the compression is better here than the 62? Maybe it's just the Digic 8. But what's great about the EOS R is we do have a ton of flavors of codecs to play with.
We'll trade.
So with the EOS R in video mode, you have IPB for 1080p and 4K, which is essentially the same setting that you have in the M50 with that 4K mode.
Right.
It's 150 megabit per second. It's a really great codec. It plays really well on my computer. It's a little softer than what I'm used to on the A7 III, but that can be a good thing too, because it kind of has a little bit more of a cinematic look rather than a digital sharp look, which, I believe it or not, like, I actually am starting to prefer my Sony more than the Canon, because I think I'm just using it more and I'm figuring out how to make the color look good.
Right.
We've been doing a lot of tests, like constantly changing our profiles, constantly changing LUTs and different things. And we're getting close. Like, I feel like we're getting very, very good at figuring out the Sony, and I'm starting to like it more. So when I look at this, I forget what I used to look at with the 1DC. But we're basically getting a lot of the things that I liked about the 1DC on here. You get the Canon log, which is amazing. I'm so glad this has Canon log.
But it's goofy.
It is goofy, and I'll get to that in a second. And we have all eye on all modes. So you have all eye recording in 4K and in 1080p, up to 60 frames per second, of course. Because this camera doesn't do 720p at 1080. Which is a huge letdown, because if this had 120 1080, it might even be a little bit more of a better video camera.
If it had that, it would be
like the
huge.
1DX.
Yeah, it'd be basically a mirrorless 1DX.
Well,
almost.
No, because that one does do 4K. And I will say this: the 1DX Mark II, if you only shoot it in 4K, is still a better video camera than this one is. You have way better rolling shutter performance. In fact, the 1DX Mark II is on the charts as one of the best rolling shutter performance cameras.
This
in 4K.
one's pretty bad.
This might be the worst. Like, I've seen A6300, A6500, and that's always been the worst. This is worse than that. I need to do a direct comparison, but the rolling shutter in 4K on this camera is so bad. Like, very, very,
we just did a test on it, and we actually, you're working on the video.
Yeah.
So that should be up soon.
Should be done tonight, and I'll upload it tomorrow. So.
Okay, cool. So you'll be able to see that, what we discovered. It's pretty atrocious.
But all that aside, the 4K is good. It's very good. You have 480 megabit per second 4K in the all-eye mode, which is just going to give you, like, really good quality, and you don't have to convert it like what I'm used to with my 1DC. It's massive file sizes, so you're gonna have to get like 256 gig SD card just to go through the day, maybe more. But you also have 10-bit out of the HDMI here, which is cool. So if you have an Atomos recorder, we're gonna try to pick up a Ninja 5 as soon as we can and do some tests. Then you can record 10-bit, and that's giving you like a lot of color information, billions more information.
I'm really curious to see a comparison.
Yeah, so that's gonna be pretty awesome.
You might not be able to tell on YouTube that well, though. Do you think?
The color richness and depth, potentially, the dynamic range. This camera does have Canon log, but it's limited, so you cannot shoot in any auto modes whatsoever in video with log. So that's not a huge deal. We've seen that before. The 1DC was like that. I couldn't shoot in auto ISO. I couldn't shoot in aperture priority. This camera does do aperture priority video, shutter priority video, and program auto. which is great for vloggers. I know Justin Rivas told me that he shoots in aperture priority mode because he wants that depth of field.
Yeah.
And he wants everything to just kind of adjust around
I do wish that I had aperture priority mode.
Well, I will say this, that the program auto mode, or just the auto mode for video,
You can kind of make
it's
that
pretty
way, though.
it's pretty intelligent. So
Yeah.
like if it's dark, it's going to open your lens up and then change your ISO.
Right.
So it's always going to prioritize keeping your ISO low. So Canon's automatic modes are pretty good, but it's cool to see that you can lock your shutter and then everything else move around it. That's what I prefer to shoot. I would rather have proper motion blur and have the camera just adjust around that.
Right.
However, Justin, terrible videographer, wants to shoot with a wide open aperture and crank his shutter up to 5,000. I'm just messing with you, Justin. You know I love you. But you can't shoot in log in that mode, which is a big downer because I know Justin Rivas, who's a professional, like literally makes a living vlogging. Him and his partner Greg, business partner. They're both married to women. They shoot vlogs like full time, and he wanted to get a 4K camera that shoots log.
Yeah.
You can do that, but you have to shoot manual. So. Justin Rivas is probably the best customer for this camera. He shoots vlogs full time, and he's a really talented. I was just messing with him earlier. He's a really talented filmmaker.
Yeah, actually, like go check him out.
Yeah, check him out. He's in the comments here, and like he's the perfect customer for this camera because he's okay with 1080p. He gets full frame, great low light because it's full frame, and flip out screen with the autofocus and it's mirrorless and log. So, you know, there are some benefits for sure with this camera. I do not want to completely bash it and say that it's terrible because it's not. If you put a Sigma 18-35 on here and just treat it like a C200 on a tripod, then you're good.
I think the problem is that there's so many great cameras out right now that it's hard not to compare it to other cameras.
And we literally have the A7 III, we own it.
Yes.
So like if both of these cameras were sitting on a table and we went out to go do a shoot, I'm going to grab the Sony because it gives me full frame 4K.
Yeah.
And 120 at 1080.
Now, in that same light, if I had both on a table, I would grab the EOS R. But that's just because what I'm filming, like for KBTS, I just need good 1080p with a flip out screen.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
To me, the Sony doesn't fit my needs. So it really does depend on what you want.
Like if you really only need 1080p with a flip out screen, there's a billion options.
Exactly, but that's what the M50's doing very well
the
for me.
SL2, 80D, 70D, 60 Mark II.
Yep.
They all do that. And they're cheaper, and in the M50's case or the SL2's case,
right,
it's smaller and lighter and way cheaper.
Right.
So like, if you really only need it really boils down to full frame and log, I guess.
If you shoot manual,
but I don't think a vlogger is gonna shoot log. I just don't.
Can you put log on there for me real quick?
Sure.
I just want to mess with something real quick.
Yeah. So this little switch here, I don't like that switch. So yeah, you go into the modes here. Oh, we have it on.
Oh, you already have it on.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there you go.
I was just curious about some stuff.
But yeah, the little custom ring here on the lenses, I was going to talk about that. That's pretty cool. You can make it your aperture, your ISO. Right here, you can have it adjust all sorts of things. And it comes out of the box clicked. You can hear the little click sounds. But you can actually send it in to Canon, and they will declick it for you. So it's just a nice smooth ring, which I would prefer because then it doesn't pick up the clicks in your audio. And it'll be a more smooth transition if you're doing aperture pulls. So it's kind of cool. And I'm glad that all the lenses are going to have that. And even this adapter here. So basically it converts all of your EF lenses to a manual aperture control, which I prefer. I love changing my aperture manually. And it's much better for video. All right, so I'm going to go through the comments here.
Weird. I disconnected from the internet.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm looking. I did a direct comparison. So Justin Rivas answered me. He said he did a direct comparison with the M50 4K and the EOS R 4K with sharpening set to 1 notch above middle, and they both looked fantastic. I agree. If you have it on a tripod, both are great. It gives you the Canon color science with a really pleasing 4K image.
And both have terrible rolling shutter.
Shutter.
Yeah, there's not.
In fact, I want to put the M50 on top and just shake it and see if they probably are
See,
similar.
this is what I was curious about, because with the M50 in manual mode, I can still kind of like cheat it and throw one thing in auto.
Yep.
So I was curious if you could do the same thing.
Nope.
But you cannot.
So, yep. So that's what I would do when I would shoot on DSLRs for vlogs. I would actually shoot in manual mode, but change my ISO to auto.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way to quickly get shots if you're vlogging. Can't do that here in log. You can in the other modes. C-Log versus V-Log, John Roca. V-Log is Panasonic's. Panasonic is definitely going to be giving you more dynamic range than Canon log. This Canon log was designed, back when the C300 was around, and it was only meant for 8-bit 1080p image quality. So now that we're recording 10-bit, you're not getting full advantage of the dynamic range that 10-bit can hold. That's why they developed the new Canon C-Logs, C-Log 2 and C-Log 3. C-Log 2 being the highest dynamic range possible from Canon, and you get those on the C200 when you shoot RAW, or the C300 Mark II, or the C700, of course. So they did not include C-Log 2 on this camera. That would have been really cool. There is 2 modes for C-Log, however. There is an 8-bit mode and a 10-bit mode. So I'm curious to test that out. Maybe that's some sort of variation of that. I don't know, kind of weird. One thing that's really curious about this camera, and I was actually thinking, hey, it's cool. This thing can do an APS-C crop. That's cool.
Yeah.
So I can use this lens and even in 1080 and whatever. But it's actually not an APS-C crop. It is the same crop as the 4K mode. It's literally the same crop. So that makes it more than APS-C. It's a 1.7 or 1.8 crop. And the rolling shutter performance is as bad as the 4K. So there's literally no reason to shoot in that mode unless you have to get the reach. But if you have to get the reach for like a telephoto reason, then switch to 4K, because not only will it crop in, but it's 4K, so you can zoom in on that as well because there's more resolution. So it's literally like a worthless mode unless you're taking pictures, of course. It'll just automatically go to that mode and you can take stills. I think that's the main kind of theme of this camera. When we do an actual review, it's a photography camera. This camera takes really good pictures. It's got fast burst rate. The autofocus is great. The color science is amazing. It's full frame.
Yeah.
This is Canon's first full frame mirrorless camera. Professional photographers are probably like, I have a lot of friends that shoot on 5Ds, and
so that's an interesting. So if you have a 5D Mark IV, let's say,
yeah,
is it worth buying this? Is
Totally.
the mirrorless worth that?
I think there's a lot of benefits to shooting mirrorless. You get an EVF, so you can actually see your subject better. It is actually, like, this actually is smaller and lighter than a 5D, and you can use all the same lenses that you already own, with the benefits of some of the new features like the better video, like the flip out screen. 5D doesn't have a flip out screen.
Yeah.
So in all of their marketing, it's looked like Canon is basically positioning this as a tool in addition to your DSLR. So like, there's so many, maybe millions of photographers.
So they're trying to market this as a B cam.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is to transition you out of DSLRs, because I think Canon sees the writing on the wall, and most of these companies see it as well. Just like electric cars are inevitably going to be the future. I mean, if you can get an electric car to drive 1,000 miles on one charge, why on earth would you ever buy gas? You know, we're not there yet.
No, but
in 10 years, electric
close.
batteries might be able to give you 1,000 miles on one charge.
Yeah.
So that is inevitable. That is the writing on the wall. There will be almost all electric cars one day. And I think Canon, like all the other companies, sees that, well, these things are just going to keep getting better and better and better. and this is going to get to a place where it's going to replace DSLRs completely.
So I guess their idea is this as a B cam, and then by the time the professional one comes out,
yep, it's transitioning you over.
That's what they're hoping for. Okay.
Versus Fuji, Panasonic, Sony, who are just everything is in mirrorless, and they're not even worrying about DSLRs at all.
Right.
And so they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink together in one. Like the A7 III has so many features packed into one thing.
Yeah.
And it's so competitively priced. It's clear that they're wanting to just take over.
Which they could.
But Canon has designed the perfect Canon camera that I was actually talking to Caleb Pike yesterday, and he said they designed this camera really well for themselves.
Yeah.
Basically, not thinking about the consumer, not thinking about you, but thinking about themselves. It's like, well, it's not good enough to leave my 1DX or my 5D4, but it would be a great B camera to a 5D, or like, well, I've been using an 80D for video for a while. I would love to go to full frame. This makes sense. I'll upgrade to the EOS R. It's not, you know, doing the best things in the world, but it is an upgrade. Like,
yeah.
And it's protecting their cinema lineup. So, like, if you really want high-quality 4K, of course, go with the C200. It's such a great camera. Like, I wish I could afford one because
that'd be awesome.
That would be a great camera for us.
By the way, I'm going to stop you. Sup, Furworks. He just joined.
What's up, Mike? So, Canon has basically positioned this camera really well for themselves. Now, here is the 10-18. I want to talk about this, and I do talk about it in our little video that's coming out tomorrow. I was able to mount this on the camera, and in the 4K mode, it does solve the crop. So 10 millimeters all the way wide is plenty wide enough. It's actually not as wide as it would be on a crop camera, but 10 millimeters is very wide. Like 10, well, let's do the math. So 10 times 1.8 is 18. So 18 millimeters on the wide end, full frame equivalent. So this lens on this body gives you a really great kind of vlog setup. It's small, it's lightweight, the autofocus is great, it has stabilization. And if you buy like this lens plus the 18-35 from Sigma, which is a 1.8 aperture, you really could use this thing as a video camera and only shoot 4K. The only thing you're going to want to always watch out for is that rolling shutter. When I was doing some vlog tests, just walking around, I saw a lot of jello going on in the image, and it is pretty distracting. So if you were to do selfie mode stuff, I would probably put it on a gimbal or something, and that would maybe get that shake, that rolling shutter
which we
out.
should test as well.
Yeah, and that might help substantially, but at that point, this camera is so big and heavy, and like it's just, that would be extremely unwieldy. I haven't seen any vloggers who only carry around a gimbal.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a good solution for a vlogger.
No, but
maybe just for movement with 4K on a regular shoot if you had to use the EOS R.
If you're a professional filmmaker, you know, weddings or you do corporate events, you know, keep it on a gimbal, put it on a monopod, put it on a tripod. All the things that, like, we're so spoiled by IBIS now, and Connor particularly is because he didn't come from any of this. And when I was shooting on the 7D back in the old days, like I remember one time my buddy Jeffrey, who I was working with, like I just popped the camera off and held it, and he literally got so angry at me. He's like, never take the camera off a tripod, monopod, or Steadicam or slider ever. Never hold it. Don't ever hold the camera. And he was right, because there was no IBIS. There really wasn't any stabilization for any lenses.
Which technically you could probably still say that it's the correct way to do it.
Because if you watch any movie, a camera is always on a shoulder rig, a tripod, a jib, a Steadicam.
Even when it's handheld.
Yeah, even when it's handheld, it's on a shoulder rig, which is giving you way more points of stabilization. And that's the proper way to shoot. So treat this camera in 4K mode, especially like that. It doesn't have IBIS, and that's okay. Like, I don't think IBIS is a deal breaker. The XT3 is fabulous, and it doesn't have IBIS. But anyways, let's go through the questions. Are you seeing anything? Steve Carpenter, here's a thought. What if Canon or say Kipon design an EF to EF drop filter, and if Kipon did for all makes of camera, they make Sony EOS filters? So Kipon made a filter tray adapter for the Sony mount that goes from Sony E to EF, and you can actually drop in filters, and there's one that like has a little dial on it. You can change the exposure. It's really great. It's almost identical to the one that Canon is releasing in January for the EOS R. Apparently Canon stole the idea from Kipon because it's been around for like 3 years.
According to Kipon.
Yeah.
We haven't actually done research in that ourselves.
I'm sure they didn't necessarily steal the idea, but they're very similar. But maybe they did. You never know. But it's a really great way to use an ND filter because then you don't have to screw it on the front.
Mike is asking, have we heard of issues with the AI servo autofocus?
I haven't had any issues with the autofocus yet. However, we haven't really done a ton of extensive testing.
Right.
We did do a quick and dirty autofocus test compared to the A7 III, which you'll see in the video tomorrow, and it face tracked fine. I was able to just tap Connor and it tracked with him. The 120 frames per second video mode, is only 720p, and you do lose autofocus completely.
Yeah, that was weird.
So when you put the 120 next to the 120 on the Sony, it's night and day. Like, it's so much better on the Sony just because it's 1080 and because it's in focus. So,
which is a big plus.
Justin Reeves is talking about the M50 with his ISO. He said it tops out at like ISO 1600 before he gets unhappy with the image, whereas the EOS R is much, much better. That's so true. With the EOS R, you can pop the 16-35 f4 lens on there, and even at f4, you're getting more light coming in because it's full frame. So you're not gonna have to crank your ISO as high, even with an f4 lens on there for vlogs. But even if you do go beyond ISO 1600, you're gonna get better noise performance just because it's a better sensor, and you get the Digigate processor as well. So with Justin, I think he's struggled with, like with the M50, if you put the 11-22 zoom on there, that zoom is like a f4.5 to 5.6, so it's super slow, and the sensor is not good in low light. So you put those two things together, and you really are in trouble because anytime you go inside, if you go beyond ISO 1600, the M50 isn't very good for vlogging because it just kind of gets grainy and mushy and
it gets grainy really, really fast.
Yeah.
Like even if even in a couple of the KBTS episodes, like when we were at Photokina, it was like semi-dark in there, but it really wasn't that dark, like to be honest. But a lot of times when it was auto-adjusting the ISO, you would notice it get really grainy and then not so grainy and then real grainy again. That's just because of the ISO hitting 1600 plus.
So they say that this camera has the 5D Mark IV sensor inside of it. And if you compare the 5D Mark IV to the GH5S on DP Review, they have this system where you can look at different settings and compare them. The GH5S actually has better noise performance than this sensor. Now, I don't know if it's going to be better with the EOS R because it's got a new processor, again, as a Canadian would say. But that's something that's really interesting. The GH5S has a 1.75x crop, which is identical to the 4K crop of this camera here. So just think about this. The GH5S is giving you 4K up to 60 frames per second, amazing rolling shutter performance, 10-bit internal, not only external but internal, log, anamorphic, waveforms, all sorts of video features. It's the same price. So if you have to have the autofocus, then this is definitely the one to get. But if you are shooting on manual lenses or you don't mind manually focusing, the GH5S may be a better option than the EOS R if you're wanting to do 4K video, because it's literally the exact same crop. And here's the big difference. The lenses are designed for that crop sensor on Micro Four Thirds, whereas these lenses are designed for full frame. So you're not going to find a 12 to 35 zoom with an f2.8 aperture on the EOS R because that would be ridiculous for full frame.
Yeah, but in terms of 4K video, you could also just get the A7 III.
Oh yeah, of course.
I mean,
yeah. And you get the autofocus, but like, it's kind of weird because I think almost the GH5S is more comparable when you think about it, with the exception of the autofocus.
Sure.
Because you get a flip out screen, there's no IBIS.
Right. It's just not full frame.
Yeah, and you get dual card slot. There's so many it's just so frustrating because there's so much competition right now with Panasonic, Fuji, and Sony, and this camera is just so lackluster. And like, if you just focus in on it and you think about it, and you're totally biased, and you don't look at the competition, and you look at Canon.
Yeah, just Canon.
Just look at Canon
in a vacuum.
In a vacuum, like Peter McKinnon or Matty would. It looks good. Like it looks like a cool, like, oh, this is a new system. That's great. Just take the blinders off and look at the competition. The color science all the way through all these different companies has gotten so good at this point that
I would still say Canon has that something.
Yeah, it's got mojo for sure, but like,
but it's not drastic anymore.
No, I like the Sony A7S was terrible. I never liked the color on that camera. Every single time I would try to use it, it just was never good. But I mean, look at us right now. Like, I'm looking at the screen of our live stream right now, and it looks good. Like, it's a little, it's a little orangish, but that's because of our lighting, and my white balance is maybe a little off. And we've got a tungsten light behind us, giving us
also
a nice
like setting up our live stream color is really weird. Like, we have to oversaturate it because it then undersaturates when we go live. It's weird.
Paul Lucas, what do you expect the Pro EOS R to offer by way of specs, given that Canon typically holds back on specs? Is a small crop in 4K still likely? That's a good question. I think you want to look at the 1DX Mark II and think about that as a mirrorless camera. So in that case, you're looking at high burst rate, so it'll maybe trigger like go really fast in terms of taking pictures. It may do a slight crop on the sensor like the 1DX, which is a 1.3x crop. But maybe it'll have dual Digic 8 processors in it, which would give you a better rolling shutter performance, maybe give you 4K at 60 frames per second. Just think about a mirrorless 1DX, 1DX Mark II. That's kind of what I would imagine. I think they would stick with a flip out screen because they might just stay with this similar body style, but they might make a whole new body design that has a joystick on it and dual card slots, things like that. So I guess it has to be a new body.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to stick with that same body.
Yeah.
There's more that they're going to have to fit into it to make it pro, or at least you would hope.
Yeah. I think the most exciting thing about this is the fact that Canon's finally here with mirrorless.
Yeah,
They've got a whole new lens lineup.
I just think it's funny because it's like the same thing we were saying with the M50, and now it's what we're saying with the EOS R.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's not what we're saying with whatever the next one's called.
Yeah.
And like hopefully they finally deliver something that we're like, yes, this is what we've been asking for.
Yeah, but here's the catch is like if Canon does get to that point, Sony's gonna just continue to be ahead of them.
Right, they'll be at 6K maybe.
Like the A7S III, don't forget about this, guys. The A7S III still has not come yet, and it'll probably not come till maybe next year at this point. There's rumors that there might be an announcement this month, but if they don't announce it this month, then it's definitely going to be after Christmas. So A7S III, 10-bit 4K, 4K at 60, amazing low light, IBIS, great autofocus, great battery life, new color science, like, which all those things combined like are great, but I don't even know if we need a lot of those things. I mean, 4K 60 would be great, but better slow-mo would be great. So yeah, we'd probably get one, but
in the end. But once we have all those things, like just speaking hypothetically here, once we have all those things, like say the A7S III gives you everything that you want in today's time, what's next?
Well, I mean, they probably won't have flip out screens, so we'll still be angry about that.
Right, okay. But I mean, like internally wise. Like if they gave you 4K 60 and they gave you really good 120 slow motion, they gave you 10-bit internal.
There's no arrival because there's always going to be more things, newer
I know, but
things.
that's what I'm saying. So what do you think they'll go medium format? Do you think we'll look at 6K?
Yeah, I think.
What do you think?
I think first off it'll be just refining, so giving us 4K 60 all the way through. That's going to be a big deal. Maybe even 240 frames per second instead of 120 like the GH5 does.
Right.
Would be great. So getting nitpicky about that. The autofocus improving.
Sure.
Like, there's a lot of little nitpicky things about the Sony that drives me bananas. Like, I plug the HDMI in and I lose face tracking.
Sure.
Or I plug the HDMI in and I lose my screen on the back when I'm shooting 4K. It stretches the image by 0.1% in 24 frames per second.
They still haven't fixed that?
No,
I haven't asked you about that recently.
The IBIS on the Sony is not near as good as the Panasonic.
Okay.
So there's a lot of little things like that.
Sure.
That can be upgraded. But I think as far as like the next frontier, if you want to say that, would definitely be getting into 6K, but our computers just aren't there yet. But that'll be fun when we start seeing that. I could see Panasonic being first with a GH6 doing 6K. Get it?
That would be good. But what's the sensor size?
Micro Four Thirds.
So that's a difference.
Yeah, exactly. But the GH5S exists, so if they do a GH6S, that'd be great for the low light stuff.
Sure.
Micro Four Thirds is still a viable thing to use. They just announced that amazing 10 to 17 f1.7 lens for Micro Four Thirds, so that's cool. And 6K is something that apparently they want at the Olympics in 2020. So there are companies like Panasonic and Sony who have said they're working on 6K cameras for that event. But those are going to be like broadcast cameras, not really like.
I mean, if they're talking the Olympics, yeah.
But like Red is already shooting 8K full frame RAW. So like,
but not in a body like this.
I think RAW, like now that we're talking about it, RAW is going to be big.
Yeah, okay.
So if we can get ProRes RAW out of these cameras, that would be a huge deal. Like, you know what it's like to edit RAW photos. Imagine that capability for video.
That'd be unbelievable.
So I would love to see higher bit rates, RAW potentially. I do have a feeling that the S1, S1R might shoot RAW video, which would be great. And then medium format, but I don't see Canon or Sony doing that.
You guys haven't really said anything about the S1.
What's that?
In comparison to this camera, the S1 that's going to come out soonish.
Yeah, so we saw the S1 and S1R at Photokina, at least the little mock-ups that they had.
Right.
And that camera is going to be real interesting. It's not going to be as good in autofocus because it's using contrast detect.
Right.
So Canon, of course, beats them there. But it's full frame, 4K, up to 60 frames per second with IBIS. It's from Panasonic, so the IBIS hopefully will be really good. The GH5 is really good. And it'll probably be around the same price point. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Right. Furworks wants to know if we have a Blackmagic Pocket.
We did not pre-order the Pocket camera. We were going to at NAB, but our boss said no, so we didn't. And we're moving to California. We've got this guy here. We've got the XT3 review as well. And I think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be focused on this guy. But once we get settled in California, I have a feeling that I could probably meet up with some people that live in Hollywood that have one. That's the benefit of living there. So my friend Dakota, I think, has some connections.
Ooh, cool.
You met him.
Oh, yeah. Dakota's a cool guy.
Yeah. But anyways, EOS R, it's slightly exciting in some aspects. I mean, the fact that it exists is a thumbs up. I mean, I'm happy that it's here.
Yeah.
We finally have it. There's some little things that I really love, like the grip, the lenses, the EVF is great, the flip screen is great. The fact that the shutter covers the sensor when it's turned off is like just really kind of genius. I wish that everybody else did something like that. The battery life is pretty decent on it. It feels pretty professional when you hold it. But the layout's kind of sucky.
I would just say that, like, in an overall sentence, basically, this camera is really, really exciting for a select group of people and extremely frustrating for an entirely another group of people.
Yeah, I think so. I can see photographers maybe being a little bit happier with it because it's essentially just a mirrorless 5D.
Right.
And that's probably a good thing for them. Although it's not, because there's no dual card slot and the focus isn't as good and the burst isn't as good.
Justin wants you to say something.
Justin, just tell people you hate it, Dave. We know what you think. No, I'm waiting for my video review to
reserve judgment
Reserve
for
all
now.
judgment. Yeah. And no, I'm not gonna just jump to the conclusion that I hate it, because I don't. I'm having a really hard time figuring out what I think about it, because it's so weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an odd beast.
Yeah. I don't know who the market is, because a pro video person should not buy this, but there's pro video features in it.
A pro video person should buy it if it's a B camera and they want a decent B.
On a tripod.
Yeah, like, like for instance, like Jim Cook, I could see him buying one as a B camera for a tripod for a wedding.
Oh yeah, I guess if he's shooting 4K,
Yeah.
He shoots 1080 for everything, so it would be good for him, I guess. But people own a bunch of Canon glass. I don't know. I'm just having a really.
But then you
hard
have to
time.
still buy an adapter.
Yeah. I just don't get it. I just don't get it at all.
This review will be fun.
All right, guys. Well, we're exactly 1 hour in here. If you have
Yeah.
any last minute questions, please let us know. Like I said earlier, we are, I promise, getting back on schedule in terms of Wednesday, Friday uploads.
Mhm.
That's the plan, at least.
That's what we advertise.
Yeah. So, although I noticed that when we do like Thursday, Saturday uploads, we get better views. So maybe I'll change that, because weekends seem
Yeah.
to be a time that people watch stuff. But anyways, we're definitely going to do a lot of tests with the EOS R. We're going to do a full feature review, video review, comparison to the M50.
Yep.
We have a A7 III comparison coming soon. So stay subscribed
And
for
I
that.
am over, because I'm going to take the camera home today and tomorrow. So I'm going to be doing some direct comparisons, if all goes well, between these two cameras. So if you want to see that, check out my channel.
Totally. What was I going to say?
I don't know.
I forgot.
Again, we are moving, so bear with us in that.
I'm tired. I'm kind of...
There's a bunch of boxes over there. We're
We'll
not
do
even
that
sure.
next
This
time.
might be our last live stream in the office. We might do another one. Kind of depends on how things are rolling for us.
I mean, yeah, next Friday.
Because Friday
That's going to be so close to move. We'll be. This room will be packed up.
This room will be completely packed up. I drive out in like 2 days from then, and
yeah, maybe we'll just do one in here with literally nothing but a chair.
that would be kind of fun.
No lighting, just like the overhead lights in here.
an empty room.
Yeah.
Ooh, those overhead lights are nasty.
Yeah, they're disgusting. Thanks,
Oh.
Mike. Coffee up for moving, lads. You're the best,
Thank you.
dude. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting our channel and for hanging around, everybody, guys. We got 48 people still watching. I can't believe it. Alberto,
I would say
G7,
this is
G7, G7, G7,
Yeah.
G7.
Yes, of course. This is probably our healthiest stream.
I think so.
I would say so. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we're working hard, so I hope this channel grows over time. Thank you guys for watching and for subscribing and for being here. We love you.
Yeah, and we really enjoy doing these streams, so keep supporting so we can keep talking and chatting with you guys. It's awesome.
Hey Justin, if you're still here, maybe sometime we should do a Google Hangout.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
With Justin.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still here. We should just text him.
Yeah, Justin Rivas, Google Hangout, EOS R. Let's do it.
That sounds good. All right.
All right, boys. We'll see you next time.